Welcome. I'm Halcyon and this is Hug Nation. Today I'm going to tell you how to make your life perfect. Guaranteed. Now, I think for this guarantee to have any validity, we first got to define perfection and define problems. And I say this guarantee not making fun of the marketing spiels that you see on late night TV and in so much of the Facebook feed of people promising things and guaranteeing things and implying that your miserable life could be so much better with the products, services, and trainings that are available to you if you simply click this link or download this worksheet or come to this seminar. I really mean that if you listen to me through this and we sink in what we're going to talk about today, we will acknowledge and feel and be in the perfection of our lives. But I want to kind of walk us through there a little bit based on some things that I've been reminded of recently. So I'm in the process of moving right now. And so I'm trying to downsize and purge things and Marie Kondo some stuff and figure out what brings me joy. And so in the process of going through bins and bins of stuff, I found a bunch of old passports and driver's licenses and ID cards from jobs and all sorts of things. But I found my passport that I took with me as I went through Europe in 91, 92. Maybe it was 92. Summer of 92. For like 4 months, I traveled to Europe. And so this picture of me with glasses before I had PRK surgery, with a solid mullet, as it was the beginning of when I was when I was undertaking the growing out of my hair, which I then had long hair for about 10 years after that. But this was the beginning of my post-college person identity. So at this moment that I began this traveling, I was very lost, did not quite know who I was. But if you've ever traveled for a long period of time, you know that you can learn a lot about yourself and the world. But what I remembered as I was looking at this picture and as I was remembering back in that time was how different traveling was then. During this 4-month period when I flew to Amsterdam, then traveled throughout Europe for 2 months, and then through Turkey for 2 months. During that 4-month period, I contacted the United States once. I had one phone call to kind of plan my return flight to make sure that someone would be there to pick me up from the airport at LAX when I returned. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized how alien this is in the modern world. No cell phones, no email, no internet cafes, getting on a plane and then having zero contact with friends, family, the news, the world. I mean, I guess I would have heard through the grapevine or people that I'm staying with that would tell me if there was US news that was dramatic, if there was like an assassination attempt on the president, I probably would have heard about that. But I was not aware of anything happening in the world outside of my immediate experiences, outside of the interactions I was having with people and places and food and this now moment. That was my world for 4 months. Unless you committed yourself to a hospital or lived in a monastery or went to the mountains, it takes a huge amount of effort in the modern world to disconnect like that. And yet that was fairly normal. This was not an insane, crazy thing for a college student to do. This was a normal thing to do, to get away from the patterns that you know for a long enough period of time that you start to sink into your normal rhythms. Normal, I mean like your authentic, non-societal cultural rhythms and thoughts and awareness. And I don't think that happens anymore. Have you ever had a period of time where you are alone with your thoughts, maybe a book and a journal, and a friend or new people or maybe a bar of people that you're telling stories. But other than those reminders from those places, you just have time to sift through and shed and sort through and ponder what has accumulated in your patterns, minds, expectations for, decades. And we do not have these periods of filtering anymore. We have a huge press right now to cultivate a meditation practice, which does this same thing. And although I will not claim to be a dedicated meditator, I recognize that is a way that we can do that in the world. And so I've been thinking about what is the impact of this lack of presence, this lack of disconnection, this always on connectivity. And it's not just the fact that we have cell phones, it's also that we have on demand television. Growing up, it's not like I could just distract myself all day, every day with Netflix or with Facebook. If I stayed home from school and didn't go to school, the only choices I had to distract myself was daytime TV, was game shows and soap operas. So it's almost like, what's the point? Might as well go to school, Whereas now, you want to take a day off, the access to distraction is so huge, so massive, so powerful, so overwhelming that it's ever present. And because we have no breaks, it's just growing and growing and growing and growing. And then you're constantly reminded through social media posts and through people's conversations, this growing stimuli that is available at any moment. So the ability to go deep or still takes a discipline like nothing we've ever had as a human. So that was the first big awareness of, as I'm pondering the past compared to the present. And I put it online, I mentioned this, and someone says, well, which do you prefer? What do you like better? That old world or this new world? And I found that really hard to answer because from now I can look back and see how much I miss about that. But from now, I also see how much about the now that I am addicted to. How integrated it is. It's like, I could no longer remove this from who I am without changing who I am. So I don't know how to decide which I prefer. I guess I miss and I recognize the benefits and the danger. When I first discovered the internet back in the early days, before it was a real, before most people knew what was going on online, I became overwhelmingly excited and evangelistic about connectivity. I was short-sighted. I did not see the downside. I only saw this as a tool of connecting people and eliminating the barriers, geographical experience, that would allow people to really bond with our tribe worldwide. And I did not anticipate the darkness of it, which is, as we connect on that level, we also isolate. And when I say we, I mean me and our culture. So that's the first thing. This recognition of connectivity, and although there was time for tons of personal isolation, I think it did not have the same kind of spiritual isolation that the current world has. So the second thing that I remember about this traveling experience that was so impactful to this, what I want to talk about today about perfection of our lives, and is that there was a moment when I was traveling through Turkey, and at the time it wasn't a big tourist spot. I don't know what it's like now, but we would go, my friend and I would arrive in these little towns, and sometimes we were the first American they'd ever met. Certainly we were a novelty, and they would enjoy trying to practice English with us, and inevitably we would be invited to the local tea house. And that was the social scene in most of these towns, is you would hang out at the tea house, the men would, and drink tea and talk and tell stories and such. However, occasionally we would go to a tea house that had a television. Not everyone. This was a fairly new technological advance in many of these towns. They had a television, not in everyone's house, but at the tea house. And then they would watch American TV. Baywatch was the most popular show on. And at first it was so funny to me because everyone was so excited to talk to somebody from California because they had learned so much about California from Baywatch. And then I started to become aware of the poison of this and how generations of men told stories about their lives and their farms and their families and never had the outside influence of a culture that was more extravagant, better, as is being portrayed by the way the shows are put together and by the way the marketing starts to infiltrate. And suddenly you have this comparison of the life that I've known forever, the life of my father, the life that I have, compared to the life of Pamela Anderson, and this glamour that is not what I have. And so suddenly baseline normal life is no longer good enough and isn't enough. And this introduction of this virus, this progress virus, this need for better or more, I watched it as we would go to these tea houses. I watched it in these people, and I was like, whoa, this is a really fascinating time in this cultural transition. And it made me realize how much it was a part of the American culture, the American Western need to bigger, better, more, partially because it's the way our economy must be to be in a constant state of growth. Of course, a constant state of growth has all of these consequences to the environment as well, but that's a whole other topic. And so if we can be aware of these two things, the presence of constant connection and the infiltration of a more progress virus, that what you have is not enough, a marketing impact, then suddenly you realize that the default awareness that you have is under attack constantly. And you're constantly being pulled from the present moment, and you're constantly being reminded of what's not enough about you. And I think about the information that I'm taking in right now on a daily basis, and how if I'm not aware of what it's doing to me, how much it can make me feel like things suck or I suck. I laugh at The Daily Show and late night humor TV about the political system, but as I'm being entertained, I'm also being reminded of the injustice and of inequality and of oppression and of frustration and anger, and the system that is ever present and not right. Now, the truth is, in this moment right now, if I remove the story, if I remove the connection, if I remove the impetus, or the input of that information and that perspective, if I close my eyes, am I aware of the corruption? Am I aware of the inequality? Do I have any experience in this now moment that has any taste of that suffering? No. Go back to my feed and I see all of these posts about people like Instagram models and their fitness and advertisements for diets. And I start to think, yeah, I had this momentary twinge of like, I need to be working out more. I could, and it doesn't feel like suffering immediately. It feels like hope because I feel like this twinge of inspiration. Yeah, I'm going to eat better. But then I have this film over everything that is me now that's not enough. And it's just like, ugh. Now, if I close my eyes and I don't look into a mirror and I don't compare myself to Instagram Fred, do I have any experience of that suffering? No. And lately, I've been, based on encouragement from people that I really care about and love, and people that love and care about me, have been joining Facebook groups about coaching and about building businesses and entrepreneurs. And there is this tone of helping and positivity, but I find that it's just like watching Instagram models where I have these moments of feeling inspired, like this is stuff that I could do and should do. And then this not enoughness, this comparison feeling that why am I not doing more? Why am I the progress virus, the Baywatch? Why am I not as fit as these hunks? Why am I not as wealthy as these people? Why am I not as successful according to these very, very clear successful definitions that this social media world has given to me? That this new world of connection has a constant reminders in every direction of what I could be doing better, how I could be more. Oh, praise Kardashian, if I could only have what you have. And yes, it's entertaining. Yes, at a super cerebral level, I understand it's not really what I want. But it creates this comparison baseline tweak where, just like the people in the tea house, where one minute I was enjoying my tea with friends, the next minute I'm wondering why I don't have a nicer car. And then I'm talking about with my friends in the tea house what's wrong with our lives. And how much does that become a part of our culture, this complaining, this kind of institutionalized dissatisfaction that we see in so much of online conversations, and we internalize it. I internalize it. So I don't know what it is that you are being exposed to, but I challenge you to be aware of the impact. Be aware of, is this inspiring or is this poison? And do you have the discipline to cut it off and really ask, am I experiencing any of this suffering? Do I have the ability to cut it off? When people ask me, how's it going? Like if I'm in a store, like, how's your day going? Or how are you? How you doing? I try to ask, perfect. And it sometimes throws people off because everything about the world reminds us that that's not right. You're not perfect. That's impossible. There's so many things that you could do better and be better. Who's perfect? But if you go back or sink into a Byron Katie type perspective or a Eckhart Tolle power of now perspective, and you take away that comparison, you take away the story of what should be and instead go into the what is, it is perfect. Even with aches and pains. It's only imperfect. It's only suffering if you wish it was different. If it simply is, it has no choice but to be perfect. Byron Katie says that if you argue with reality, you suffer, but only 100% of the time. One of the tools that she uses that I find to be the most powerful tool to break free from that poison of story, of suffering based on thoughts, is woman sitting in chair. man sitting in chair is the way that I would use it, just so I don't get confused. Or man sitting in car. That as you become aware of the story that's going on, as you become aware of the feeling that I'm not doing enough, I ate too much this weekend, I put on some pounds, I didn't do that thing I was supposed to do, this person didn't show up in the way that I wanted them to, whatever that story is, as you become aware of that story, cut it all off and go, what is real right now? What is the only thing that is real right now? Man sitting in chair, talking at a camera. Oh. There's no suffering in that. And so that is how I can promise you a perfect life. Because what is happening in this present moment is perfect. There's no other choice. It must be. It is happening. That's how you know it's supposed to be happening. It's happening. So this moment is perfect. You are perfect. And any time that is not the case, you have slipped into that story. You have been pulled into the trap of the marketer or the media or the connectivity tool to pull you into a 24/7 entertainment. Cut it. It's just for a second, whether it's through meditation or just that little tool of man, woman sitting in chair, and break free of that story. Sit in your perfection, recalibrate, and then from that baseline, step into gratitude. Then you can reassemble a reality based on the things that are amazing. You have functioning eyes and can see me right now? Amazing! You can hear my voice in case you don't have functioning eyes or you're only listening to the audio podcast. Amazing! You have a roof over your head. Amazing. You've got running water. You've got a room in your house that actually shoots drinkable water out of the wall at an adjustable temperature. In any other century, that would be science fiction. And we don't even notice it unless we cut the stories out of what's wrong, sink into the present perfection, and then start adding back on all the things to be grateful for. And it's an active process because the number of voices and stimulus that are trying to pull you into the distraction level, unless you can get off into a mountaintop or time travel to 91 and backpack, it is an active battle to cut off the stories and pull into the present perfection. There it is. Just like I promised. Your life is perfect. Guaranteed. Thanks for being part of my life. I love you. Your life is perfect. If you're not aware of that, or there are things in the way of you feeling that and experiencing that, I can help. Join me for the pink path. Your purpose, your perfection, it's right underneath the surface. Let's bring it out together.